Welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders, a weekly talk show with local and national thought leaders on issues impacting the Black community. Now introducing our host, Miss Ann Marie Sorrell.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders. I am your host, Ann Marie Sorrell, President and CEO of the Mosaic Group. Thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join us for a very important yet fun conversation. Before we get started with our broadcast, I want to first thank our sponsors, Broward Health and the Florida Lottery, for making this broadcast possible. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Michael MJ Green, who is the Vice President and Fund Director of Commercial Lending for Dade County Federal Credit Union. Hello, MJ.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. How are you surviving this madness?
As best as anybody can, just trying to stay busy and work, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Okay. Well, welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders. I am going to formally introduce you to our audience who may not be familiar with you. So just give me one moment to go over your bio. Michaeljohn Green, better known as MJ Green, moved to Miami, Florida from Seattle, Washington. He studied Management Information Systems and Economics at Harris-Stowe State University. He proceeded to work in grassroots organizing with Acorn, but later found a home working for one of the nation's top CDFIs in Justine Peterson. His success and passion for finance led him to jobs at Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and the Bank of Montreal. While working with the private wealth team at the Bank of Montreal, managing over $580 million with not one Black or Brown client, creating wealth in minority communities has now become his calling. With that passion, working with the Miami-based Community Development Corporation and managing the CDFI seemed to be a natural fit. As fund manager of the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade, he started a small business lending program focused on minority entrepreneurs. Most recently, Mr. Green has helped in creation of the Rise MiamiDade Fund, a county-supported program to support small businesses ecosystem through this current pandemic. Mr. Green primary goal, is to provide access to capital and technical assistance to Black and other minority-owned businesses. As well as working to support the diverse small business community in Miami, MJ is actively engaged in communities across the country and sits on the board of the Africa Town Land Trust, Leadership Miami Executive Team, First Place Scholars, Merit XP, MDC Small Business Enterprise Board, and the African American Alliance of CDFIs and CFOs. Now, just a quick fun fact, in addition to being an advocate for wealth creation in urban communities, MJ is a basketball fan, traveler, and proportionate of all things that help LMI communities thrive. So welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's dive right into it. You said creating wealth in the Black community is your calling. Can you elaborate on why this is your calling and how are you walking in this purpose?
Sure. I think that, growing up as a kid, one thing that became, really eye-opening to me was the differences in access that, I was able to have versus maybe even some of my friends, right? And that's because my dad did pretty well for himself. And it just was eye-opening. When I ran campaigns with Acorn, I really thought that if, the person who had the most money for the campaign was usually likely to win. I really saw money as not only an opportunity, but equalizer, and something that can help us, I would say, get the freedom that we're still striving for. I don't think that money is the end-all be-all, but it definitely makes things easier, and it allows you to be able to create your own path, it allows you to have freedom, right? Money can buy you actual time,
Absolutely. Well, I think when it comes to economics in the Black community, money is definitely the root of it. It's being able to afford, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's having capital to start a business and grow a business. It's being able to have a certain quality of life.
It opens up the door for opportunity, right? And
Absolutely.
opportunity is what we're all, as much as I would, hate to say this, when you think of the American dream, right? The American dream is based on opportunity, right? I think that, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, being able to have the funds to provide yourself or your children with the opportunity is all that you can really ask for. They might not go to the school or they might not do X, Y, or Z, but being allowed the opportunity allows you to be able to have a certain level of freedom and make some choices.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. So tell us about your role as Vice President and Fund Director of Commercial Lending with Miami-Dade County Federal Credit Union. Tell us about the money.
Yes, no, sure. The Dade County Federal Credit Union has an amazing story. A credit union started with a few dollars in a cigar box and has grown to almost $1 billion credit union. And working with them, the county, and the local CDFIs, we really felt that this pandemic that we're all going through, how would it affect small businesses? And knowing that Miami-Dade County is the number one small business community in America, and definitely the number one when it comes to diversity, we really wanted to make sure that it was something that we were able to, if we could, set something up to not only help the businesses today, but in the future. And so recently, once this RISE Fund got started, I came over to the Dade County Federal Credit Union to help manage and run that fund and to make sure that we really get the hands into the individuals in which we are trying to help.
Okay, good. So speaking of that, because I know that I'm familiar with some of the language of CDFIs, credit union versus traditional banking, but a lot of our audience members and people in our community may not understand the difference. What they know, especially as a business owner, listen, I need capital and I just need to know where to go. So can you maybe better help us understand or help our audience understand, what's the difference between obtaining funding from a credit union versus a CDFI versus a traditional bank? What are some of the differences and, what are some of the advantages as well?
Sure. So I'll start with traditional banks. Your traditional banks are going to be Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase. I would, on down the line, even the more regional banks like TD Bank or PNC or any of those. Credit unions, all of the banks have shareholders, right? All of those banks that I listed, you can buy shares of their company on the actual stock market. Right? You could buy a share of Bank of America, Wells Fargo, X, Y, and Z. Those banks, their ultimate goal is to make profit and money for the shareholders, right? The individuals who own shares of that company. And so they're always trying to increase and maximize profit. Sometimes in the way of maximizing profit, small business can be risky. They don't do as much small business lending as maybe some of us would like, right?
Right.
Put their money into other things that are going to get a higher yield than what a small business might get. So that's traditional banks. A bit more difficult to get loans from traditional banks. Most traditional banks want to do small business loans at upwards of $250,000. And they have, credit score requirements and different things like that, that sometimes the bar is a little bit high for most entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that we're trying to affect, be able to access. Credit unions, unlike banks, are not for profit, right? So their goal is to be there for their members. And their members are the individuals who own or they have a share in the actual credit union. Credit unions aren't publicly traded. So the way the shareholders are the driver of the bank, the members, the actual people who have accounts there, are the drivers for credit unions, right? And then there are CDFIs. I'll say this: credit unions usually have better rates because they're not trying to get the most profit as they possibly can. Usually what you'll see, and most people talk about the difference in credit unions, are the rates, but it's a different viewpoint, right? The viewpoint for the banks is to do everything they can to help the shareholders or to make the shareholders money, and the view from the credit union to do everything they can to protect their members' assets in the bank. CDFIs are community development financial institutions. They were enacted or created when Bill Clinton was in office. And since then, they do what we would call community-based financing or lending. They will lend to small businesses. They will build some facilities. A lot of the large nonprofit facilities or other community facilities, YMCAs, sometimes are funded through CDFIs. They're a great vehicle for the community. CDFIs are not regulated the same way as the other two institutions, so they can be a bit more community based. When I was running the community fund of North Miami-Dade, we didn't have a credit score requirement, right? So I did loans for individuals who had 500 credit scores, and you don't usually see that in traditional small business lending. Also, CDFIs usually go the extra mile when it comes to technical assistance. They're really invested in the success of the business. So they offer a host of technical assistance. The great thing about the credit union is the Dade County Federal Credit Union is both a credit union and a CDFI. So it kind of has that duality and that mission.
That's pretty cool. Now, do you find that often? Are there other credit unions that have the dual CDFI as well, or is that just unique to Miami-Dade County?
It's unique, but there are other ones. There's not a lot. I don't know the exact number, and I want to say, I know that we're probably the only one in Miami-Dade County, and I might be wrong about that, but it is unique as far as the number of most credit unions aren't CDFIs, but more and more are becoming CDFI because of their mission and their goal to help out their members and the community.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully that it definitely enlightened me a little bit more than what I thought I already knew. Just when you think you know everything, you can learn more. But definitely helping our audience and listeners better understand the difference, because I know, oftentimes, especially as business owners, when we're looking for that financing, we're like, okay, well, where do I go? And our first thought is to go to a traditional bank, which is where most of us probably have our accounts. So that's where we're first going. And then once we're turned down for whatever reason, like you said, because it's just not known to lend to small business a whole lot, right? And depending on how small you are and your credit and all types of other assets, collateral, et cetera, oftentimes small businesses, especially minority businesses, are turned away. So a lot of times we don't know where else to go. We're not thinking about the credit union. We're not thinking about a CDFI or a credit union that also serves as a CDFI. So thank you for that enlightenment on the differences and some of the different benefits.
No problem.
So let's talk about the Rise Miami-Dade Fund. Can you dive a little bit more into what that is and how it helps businesses?
Sure. So the Rise Miami-Dade Small Business Loan Fund, RISE stands for reinvesting in our small business economy, reinvesting in our small business economy. It's a public-private partnership between Miami-Dade County, the Dade County Federal Credit Union, and the local CDFIs. We're working with 3 CDFIs, Axion USA, Miami Bayside Foundation, and BBIF, which stands for the Black Business Investment Fund. So those are our boots on the ground and our partners. And so the Rise Miami-Dade Small Business Fund is really trying to provide capital to small businesses in Miami-Dade County. You must live and the business be located in Miami-Dade County. And it's really to help them survive through the pandemic. You can borrow 6 times your rent, right? For most businesses, their largest static cost or fixed cost would be rent. And so you can borrow 6 times your rent to be able to stay in your location, right? We want you to be able to weather this storm and pay that back over a 3 or 5 year period at the Wall Street prime rate, which is the best rate that banks give their top tier lenders, which is at the moment 3.25%. The idea is that these funds will be used to help businesses weather through this storm, unlike some of the other programs that are tied to payroll, right? The PPP program.
Right.
These funds can be used for whatever your need is, right? If your need is for, if your restaurant is open back up and you need to buy supplies, inventory, if it is to, maybe you need PPE or something done to your place so you can, operate in what some people will call the new normal, or even if it is for payroll, right? And so the idea is to provide these small businesses that are in need with some capital. There is a credit score requirement, which is 575. But if you're around that area, it's worth applying and having a conversation with our local CDFIs, and we definitely can see what we can do.
Now, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, how quickly is the funding made available once someone is approved? or how long does the process even take to get approved?
Sure. So one of the things that we're seeing a lot is that not everyone has necessarily the paperwork or getting your paperwork together. Even some of the businesses that weren't able to take advantage of some of these programs, PPP, EDIL, most of that is around, just having your paperwork. I don't think that our paperwork requirements are extreme. It's bank statements, taxes, both business and personal. But if you have all of your documents, you could get a check in probably about a week and a half.
Okay. That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes a huge difference. I mean, for some businesses, a few days is life or death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're having a lot of conversations with people that are, really kind of stretched to their max. And those are the individuals that, we want to be there and to be able to support them, to be able to provide this capital so that they can, last until 2021. We all can see other places around the world opening back up. I don't know what the world looks like necessarily going forward, but we all want our businesses to survive, and we're here to help them do that. We're really looking to affect businesses that are under $2 million in revenue and less than 25 employees. So we're really looking for, I hate to necessarily call them mom and pop because I think that seems, relatively small businesses, but we're looking for businesses under $2 million. They can have up to 25 employees, and hopefully this cash will help them, again, make it through this pandemic.
Absolutely. Now, do you provide any, or does any of your CDFI partners provide any type of technical assistance for those who may not have their paperwork in order or just, need some guidance and get it all together? Do you guys provide that help as well?
We do. And that was one of the reasons in which we wanted to work with the local CDFIs. We realized that they had an expertise in this area and they could be the boots on the ground. And so if you don't have all your paperwork in order, that's, why we're really here. We will send you to one of the CDFIs and they'll work with you hand in hand to get your paperwork together. We also have a partnership with the Beacon Council and a program that they're working on and running that can also provide technical assistance to help businesses. And I think they have over, 100 different partners that they're working with to provide technical assistance to the small business community.
Okay, good. Now, I know that many of our businesses, we've, those who have been able to survive so far, thank God, knock on wood, for those of us who've been able to survive this pandemic and everything else that's going on. I know there's some steps that businesses can take to make it through this crisis. And we don't know how long this crisis is going to last, right? We know that the projections for the fall are pretty grim as we get into the winter months, unfortunately, especially with flu season and everything. So we really don't know the extent of this crisis and how long we're going to be in it. So we don't know how long we got to be in survival mode. But can you discuss the 4 steps that you've come up with for Black business owners to take to make it through this crisis?
Sure. I think, the first one really is, making a plan, right? Assessing where you are right now, how bad things are or how good things are. There are some businesses that actually are thriving, right? Why is your business thriving? So once you kind of assess things, so I'll put that as number 1, assess where you are. 2 would be to make that plan. We see not enough businesses, I think, really have a hold on their finances, right? And that's all that a business is about. In a lot of the conversations that we're having, people don't have necessarily profit and loss statements or cash flow projections. We are asking for profit and loss, but not necessarily cash flow. But cash flow is so important to being able to make sure that your business is able to succeed or make it through this, right? How much money do you need to make a month? What is your overhead? And I think that can help you really start making some decisions on what you need to do. The third thing would be, if necessary or if possible, pivot, right? One of the things that was a great lesson for me in wealth management is to take the emotion out of money and finances, which is pretty difficult, right? And I would say even maybe more extremely difficult for African Americans because, the lack thereof and knowing how of a sometimes depressed situation that we are in financially, right? And financially as a whole. So sometimes it's difficult to take the emotions out of money, but once you're able to do that, to see if you can make a business pivot, right? Is there another opportunity out there for you? Once you just kind of step away from the table and look at things, is there another lane that's opened up? Is there another income stream that's opened up? Is there something that you can do that can help increase your profit margins, right? What can you do to make more money? And then the fourth thing I would say, which is something I'm a big proponent of, is network. Harder to do now, probably, than it ever was before, because we're all kind of locked inside the house, right? But I think that there's, again, taking the emotion out of it, I don't know if it's positive or negative, but we kind of really live in two worlds now, right? Which is pretty obvious. There is the physical world where we see each other in person, and then there's the virtual world, right? So you can make friends, relationships, business deals virtually. If you don't think you can, I think that you got to take some time to really think about that and figure out what tools that the internet has provided really work out for you, right? And so to make those relationships, sometimes they can cross, right? There's people that I know virtually and in real life, but there's also individuals that I've only met, through the computer, through phone, through Zoom, right? But those people can still buy products, support your business. And I think that that's really, what we see now in some of the businesses that have been successful is the power of social media, brand awareness, and just having a online network to support you if the real world or offline world is now no longer available to you, right?
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, the positive of being virtual is that we are able to take down the borders.
Yeah.
I recall several occasions where people would be, for whatever reason, in awe that I do business across the state and particularly across the Tri-County. And I'm like, yeah, we're a region, but now you can do business across the country, across the world. So it actually, if you look at it in a positive light, being virtual allows us to connect with people outside of our borders that we probably normally would not have the opportunity to. It may take a little more work. It may take a little more intention to do that, but definitely to your point, using the virtual platforms we have available to us.
The power of numbers, right? If you say, I make, 1% off of, every person that I meet, right? So if 100 people, you got $1. 1,000 people, 10,000, goes on and on and on. Well, there's billions of people in the world. You get the numbers. So you need to really, that is an awesome opportunity for a lot of small businesses that can take advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely. See, this is why everybody needs a pocket MJ, because it's all about the numbers. Everybody needs somebody to remind them about the numbers.
Yeah, that would be my fifth thing, would be get a good accountant, would be my fifth thing. I think sometimes, especially in some of these other programs, our program, paperwork is just so important, right? Being someone, the difference in individuals in which I see and where we ask them for these documents and they say, oh, hey, let me email my accountant, and the accountant sends me everything I need in the next 15 minutes. If this is something that you're not going to be on top of, it is a bit of a luxury, but being able to afford and pay for the person that's going to be able to do that in times like this makes your life a lot easier.
Oh, listen, I am the queen of outsourcing the professional services. If you can't hire a full-time accountant or a full-time HR person or whoever, there are consultants out there that do this for a living. Outsource it, and make sure your stuff stays in order.
Exactly.
So I agree 100%. Do you believe you're actively engaged across many communities, not just in Miami-Dade, but across the country? So what are some of the trends that you're seeing as it relates to Black-owned businesses since February? And do you think the RISE program can serve as a model for other cities, counties, not just regionally, but around the country?
Definitely. I think across the United States, I, went to a lot of different schools, moved around a lot. So that introduced me to a lot of people across the United States. What I'm hearing on the different boards and communities that I'm involved with is that there are a lot of businesses that are struggling. And I think that there's a kind of an idea of shelter in place that's going on in the Black community and Black businesses, right? In the last 5 years has been the largest growth of Black-owned businesses in the United States since the end of slavery, right?
Wow.
And especially for Black African-American women-owned business. And so the RISE program was really created to help all of those businesses and to really be there so that they could have a place to turn to when they needed capital. The last economic crisis, there's some statistics where, traditional banking, lending to small businesses dried up 80% and never came back. They've done 80% less in small business lending since, I want to say, maybe it's like 2008, 2009, right? So where
Right.
can you go get capital from, right? That's why I really think CDFIs are so important and so needed in all minority communities. And they are across the United States, but we oftentimes don't know about them. I think that they are, for a small business, some of the best unsung heroes and partners that you can have. They're going to work with you, right? Their goal is to help you get the loan. Even if you're not ready today, they're not going to just send you a letter in the mail and turn you down and never talk to you again. They're going to help you get an account. They're going to help you do cash flow plan. They'll help you write a business plan. They will help you get to the point where you can get the loan. And so the RISE program, we're very focused right now today in helping the small businesses survive through the pandemic. But the idea from the CDFIs, the commissioners, and the Dade County Federal Credit Union is that this was, long-term, right? The idea is that this fund will last in perpetuity. So down the road, whether it's another pandemic or some catastrophic event, businesses will have a place to turn to where they can access capital. Miami has unique and has, for lack of the most culture and flavor, maybe in all of the United States, right? Only from culture and flavor would probably be, New York or something like that. Some of the top 3 metropolitan cities in the United States. And we want to preserve that. And a lot of those businesses are small, right? 80% of Miami-Dade County is employed by what people would call, or what the SBA calls, a small business. And we want to make sure that this fund is a backbone, a highway of access to capital for all those small businesses. So we do want to be a model for cities across the United States, but we also want to learn from cities from across the United States, right? We are in this for the long haul, and we want to be here. So we're watching what other cities, states, and municipalities are doing, and active conversations with them and learning and growing with them as we continue to build out this fund to support the small businesses that, everybody loves in this community.
Do you think that this presents an opportunity? I personally think it presents kind of a unique opportunity in hearing you talk and seeing how you have this puzzle of public sector, the financial institution with the nonprofit community, with the CDFIs coming together. So I know in housing, there are, like, Broward County recently passed the Housing Trust Fund, right? Specifically for funding to be designated from different sources that can't be touched, can't be, pulled to go to a whole nother source if there's a budget shortfall. But it's specifically for affordable housing over the next 10 years or so. Do you think this presents an opportunity for organizations like yourself, the chambers of commerce, and elected officials to advocate for something similar, where maybe there's a business trust fund that counties or municipalities can designate, of course, approved by voters. So it may be a ballot issue. And do you think that this positions an opportunity for such a fund to be created, so that way when we're talking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, for businesses, I think it could be a way to keep communities thriving, right? For businesses that need these type of emergency funds, that it's available, and institutions like your organization can assist in funding these types of business trusts, so to speak.
No, that's exactly what we have set up, right? So the Board of County Commissioners seed funded us with $25 million, and that's what we're using right now. But we're continuing to have active conversations with local institutions to raise additional dollars. I think that people realize more than ever, and it was kind of always something people said that, small business is the backbone or the fabric of communities. And I think that we really see that, right?
Yeah.
That's what, it helps, the money that we all get. It's from these small businesses, the places that we eat. Some of our fondest memories are at these small businesses and how important they are to our community. So I think that you can see that. But I'll kind of go to my point earlier. Any type of downturn opens up a sea and host of opportunities. So I think that we need to continue to push and ask for what we want, and continue to push for ask for more resources, and continue to push for ask for a better world, and take an opportunity and not shelter in place, right?
Yeah.
See what's out there, see what we can do, and see how we can help. I think that we all need to come around the small businesses in our community, because they create the jobs. Those jobs afford people to send their kids to better schools, and then the kid has a better opportunity, or has opportunities in life, right? Which is, again, kind of back to the very first question. What it's really all about is being able to have those different opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, that brings me to another point, because the pandemic has definitely triggered an increase in startup businesses, or even an interest for aspiring entrepreneurs. But however, we always know that access to capital, is the greatest challenge. Who has the seed money just sitting around to invest in equipment or invest in whatever the startup needs are? So how can, and even working capital to get things moving, right? Even if you want to compete, for example, on a government contract, you're required to have certain insurances. You're required to maybe even have bonding. You're required to sometimes pay for and provide the services up front, and then you're reimbursed. So there's a level of working capital that has to happen even for startup companies. So how can a startup, or someone who's interested in starting a business right now, who doesn't have the historical financial records, who they're coming from their job that they may have had or still have, if they're fortunate to still have their job, how can they overcome these challenges for access to capital, and what resources are available to them, if any?
Sure. Startups, I think that your best option. Most banks are not looking to lend to businesses that haven't been in business for more than 2 years and need positive tax returns, right? But CDFIs do lend to startups, and I think that that's where our community needs to build a better bridge and get better relationship with CDFIs. And there's multiple ones in Miami-Dade County. So you have different options, right? To see which one maybe has the best rates or works out best for what you're trying to do, or is most interested in supporting your dream or goal. The second thing I would say is, startup is a startup. It's difficult, right? I think that Silicon Valley and some of the tech startups and some of the valuations and the money they get without making a profit has kind of skewed a lot of opinions and views of what people think it takes, or the money needed for a startup. And so it's difficult to find those dollars, right? And especially in Miami. Miami is not a very tech-heavy venture capital place. So a lot of our businesses, or businesses that are not tech-based businesses, you got to self-fund, unfortunately, right? And that a lot of that goes to budgeting. You got to have control over your own personal finances to be able to save the money to invest in your business, and take the time. I think one mistake that I have seen people make a lot of times is that, and they have a great job and they want to start a business. Right now, the lady that was when I was working in St. Louis, African American woman, worked at a tech company, made a lot of money, wanted to open up this cafe, quit her job, had the money, was self-funding it, wanted to open up this cafe. She poured in so much money trying to make the place perfect and what her dream would be, right? Most of us, our first home that you buy is not going to be your dream home, right?
Right.
It's the home that works for now and maybe the next 5 years. But as you make more money, maybe you're able to buy a bigger home on the water, different things like that. But she poured so much money into it. Once the place finally opened, she just wasn't able to keep up with it, right? She had exhausted all of her cash. And a lot of times starting, you need some cash, that working capital, to have that runway, right? She could have, I think that she had the cafe, the folks in there training for 2 weeks before it even opened. Well, you're paying salaries for all those folks, right?
Yeah.
Could you do it? There's a book called Lean Startup where you start with the basics you have to just get it out there. And then you just keep building on that and keep growing and keep building on that until you get to where you want, right? And I think that that's, advice that I'd like to give to all people who are trying to start a business, right? If you got a product, for whatever reason you want to sell it through an app, but you can't afford to sell it through an app or can't develop the app right now, sell it on, offer up Amazon. There's many other ways to get the product out there, right? Start to generate some positive cash flow, save your money, and then you can fund the app yourself. Don't just not do it because you can't get to this point that you think that you really want to get to and what it has to look like. You can get there.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And that takes us to our final point from you. What do you have an additional golden nugget because you've dropped a lot of nuggets here today, MJ, and I hope people definitely share this and go back to the beginning if they're just joining us. But what's your final thought, your final golden nugget that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I think the final thing, reach out to a CDFI if you need help with your small business. I think that we need to have more conversations about finances amongst our families, our friends. I don't think that it's anything to be afraid of. And I think that we, education, read more, ask more questions, begin to save some of your money. Budgeting is huge. It sounds very simple and kind of antiquated, but it's just a huge thing, right? Until you start to budget your money and have some control over that, you're not really saving money. You're saving money kind of haphazardly. It's like, working out, but you never count how many reps you do or how long you do it. You just go until, you kind of feel a certain way, right?
Right.
So budgeting. And then the last thing, if you need help, RiseMiamiDade.com. I really encourage people to apply. We are here to help. We will help you work through getting those documents. Be patient with us and we'll be patient with you. And so those CDFIs and, save your money and really get into what your family or your personal budget is. And I think that can take you a long way. Once you're able to save some money, then you're able to invest some money. And then now your money is working for you as opposed to you working for your money.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Now, how does one, especially if they're not in Miami-Dade and there are other places, because I know CDFIs are everywhere. Sure. How does one find a CDFI?
Sure. The U.S. Treasury is the institution that regulates CDFIs. They have a website. If you just type in Google list of CDFIs or something like that, it's going to be in the first one or two links that pop up. I think it's cdfifund.gov is the name of the website. But they can show you CDFIs by state. You can type in CDFI by state, city, or whatever you live in. There's a CDFI in all 50 states, and most states have multiple CDFIs, I know, right off the top of my head, I can for surely think of, 5 or 6 just that are in Miami-Dade County. So they're out there. They're out there. They're there to support you. I think that our community needs to build better relationships with those CDFIs and really use that funding to move our business up the stair steps. CDFIs, one of their main goals is to help businesses get to that $250,000 loan, $1 million loan. The goal is that we help businesses that are on the ground, businesses that can't access traditional banking capital, and build them up to where then they can get that loan, help them improve their credit, help them improve their record keeping, their accounting. And then once they're able to do that, then they're able to go to a bank and get a much larger loan, and their business is, kind of on a rocket ship from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, stick with us for just a moment. We have a couple of announcements. This has been a great conversation, very enlightening and informative. And give us that website one more time for Rise Miami.
RiseMiamiDade.com. RISE MiamiDade.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure we drop that in the chat as well. So a couple of announcements. Nominations are now open for the upcoming healthcare issue of Legacy Miami, Legacy South Florida. The deadline is September 21st. So if you know of a phenomenal healthcare professional, please get your nominations in, and you can do that at miamediagroup.com /nominations. Also, please, while you're there at MiamiMediaGroup.com, make sure you check out the current 40 Under 40 issue for both Legacy Miami and Legacy South Florida. Next week, we will be joined by Miss Carrie Ann Royce, who's the CEO of the South Florida YWCA. And I have to put an emphasis on that because people often confuse the YMCA with the YWCA. Two great organizations, but two different missions. So please tune in with us next week. Be sure to share this video. Of course, like it, share it, rewatch it, because there are definitely some golden nuggets that were dropped by MJ. MJ, thank you so much again for joining us on today's broadcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, please, again, save this on your calendar, and we'll see you next Thursday at noon.